That's a tough question. I think growing up, it was sort of taboo, and it was, it was a place that people didn't really like to acknowledge. Think about mental health and talk about it. And I mean, even today, I think it's becoming more appropriate, more. I think that people are allowed to talk about it more today, and it's getting easier, which I love. And hopefully, my podcast and other podcasts and will help, in providing stories with people who are either celebrities or athletes, and to show the world that everyone deals with anxiety or depression or other mental illnesses, and that it's not a bad thing. It's what we all go through at some point in our lives. I don't think there's one human being who hasn't suffered from some sort of mental illness, and it varies. And growing up, I noticed that my mother probably had some depression and some anxiety issues, and I really didn't know how to deal with that. And I think my grandmother as well, she had some of those issues. And I think as a kid, you're not really, you just go, wow, that's crazy, that's weird, oh my gosh, you don't know how to deal with it. And then it's a shame that you think that somebody would sit you down and say, hey, this person suffers from this, and that it's not abnormal. It's just that they're trying to deal with it and trying to get help. And so I think I was always, I didn't realize I suffered from anxiety my whole life. I thought it was just part of me, that why am I so anxious, and why do I have to work so hard, and why do I stress so much, and why do I thought that was just what everybody goes through. And then I realized that it doesn't make me feel good. It's uncomfortable. And through finding out about my own well-being and who I am, I sort of felt like, because my father never went to a therapist. He doesn't really talk about his issues. And a lot of men are like that. And I was like, I don't know how to deal with a lot of these things that I probably happened in childhood or whatever. And the more I started talking about them and talking with someone and getting comfortable, the problems I started to address these issues, and I was able to deal with them and understand them. And I think that's what it takes, is an understanding and awareness. And the more people talk about it, the more we all talk about it, the more it will become more part of the norm, and part of society. And I think that that's important. And like I said, I think for me, it's just been really important. The podcast has become therapy for me. Mm-hmm. And I even believe the guests sometimes say, is this therapy for you? I'm like, yeah. And it's therapy for the audience, because I think that when people listen, I get so many messages, emails, texts, from my patrons, and they're like, you don't know how much this episode helped me. And I'm like, wow, that episode didn't help me as much, but each episode helps people for different reasons, whether they have a mother issue or a father issue, or growing up, or suffer from abuse, or drinking family, or whatever it is. I was astonished by the amount of love and support for the podcast, because of how much I talked about all these insecurities of my own. And I guess people really enjoy my vulnerability, and it's just me being me. And I'm very happy that it could help people. No, I don't remember ever talking about mental illness. I never heard the word bipolar, manic depressive, anxiety, depression. These are words that I just never understood, or other than, again, seeing my mom grab a Valium and go, oh my God, I need a Valium, or I need a Xanax. And I was like, what the hell is going on? So I grew up in a very conservative area in Southern Indiana. And we never really talked about that stuff. You didn't talk about sex with your parents. You didn't talk about mental health. You didn't, at least I wasn't aware of it. I mean, I'm sure some people did, but if you had issues, you kind of kept them to yourself. And it was very embarrassing, especially going through high school, being the shortest kid in my high school, and I dealt with a lot of things, and other people dealt with a lot worse. And, if you sort of just tried to tough it out, which is a shame that you couldn't go get help, but you tried to tough it out and, keep going to school and you keep going. And if I remember, I remember one time my mom and I had a huge fight after school. And the next day, the counselor called me down to his office, the guidance counselor, they called them, the guidance counselor. They guide you. And he said, Michael, your mother tells me that you're having some issues, and I was wondering if you'd like to talk about it. And I remember just going, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. I go, she's the one with issues. She's the one that, and he's like, okay, calm down. I was like really embarrassed that she had called me out when I felt like it wasn't, I was sort of blindsided, and I kind of got up and walked out, which was something I would never do. And he never called me to his office again. And I just dealt with my own stuff, and it was embarrassing. And I remember growing up, and my friend Danny, his parents got divorced, and there was some abuse there, and I wasn't aware of it. I just remember him crying one day, and he came out of his house crying. He said, my mom and dad are getting divorced. And I just really didn't know what to do. And I felt like, I look back, I'm like, God, I wish he had somebody to talk to. I wish he had another mother or father figure that would sit him down. And his parents didn't do that. Again, I don't think that was part of the culture back then. And I'm just happy that it is now, and I hope more and more people are able to try and talk to their children. And because if not, those things come back to haunt you, as we all know. I think all those music, film, TV are all great mediums and can help sort of translate mental health and make it more understandable. I think that a lot of times when we watch something and we get emotional from it, watch a movie, we learn a lot. We tend to learn sometimes from movies, if they're done well, about mental illness or about these things that we don't talk about or we haven't talked about. And I'm trying to think of a movie right now or something that I could recall going, oh, this really hit home. And like Marilyn Monroe, I watched a documentary on her, and just seeing becoming a star at that age, and we didn't really know what she was going through, and keeping this persona of who she is and hiding away from the public, all the things that she struggled with. And I think it's great when it's done right, when the movie is good, or the TV show, when it can deal with that stuff. It's important. That's art. When you can you could educate people through that, that's when it becomes significant. So I think it's fantastic. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I try to write when in my band, Sunspin, album's out now. I try to write songs that I feel a lot. And so whenever I feel like I don't even have to write the song. I feel like the song, I write the song without actually having to write it. It comes out of me. I think it's cathartic. It feels like, whatever I'm feeling. I have a song called The Show, where I think I was just really in a dark place. I really didn't like myself that much. And it just came out of me. And so when you could, when people could relate or listen to a song and say, oh my gosh, that was what I was going through, I understand, that's when it works. The same thing with a movie, or when they can relate to a character. And my podcast is a great medium. My friend Sean Astin, who was in Goonies and Rudy and Lord of the Rings, he talks about his mother having bipolar disorder, manic depressive. And it was really beautiful how he loved his mother, but he knew that she really suffered, and she had a mental illness. And so when you could hear stories that are true, that you could relate to, that's when it's important, and that's when it really could help. I started to get anxiety attacks when I was actually, I had one when I was doing Smallville. I had an anxiety attack. I was staying in this apartment that I rented. One of the makeup art, the hair, she did hair for Smallville. Christine, God rest her soul. She was a wonderful woman, and she had a friend, and I rented the apartment. And I remember I was just nervous. I wasn't sleeping well, and I had a full-on anxiety attack to the point where I wrote my whole family a letter saying, if I die tonight, because I feel like I'm going to die. I feel like I'm going to have a heart attack and I'm not going to make it, but I want you to know that I had a good life and I want you to know that I love you all. And I was crying reading this, writing this letter to my family. And I didn't know that I was having an anxiety attack. And then I finally fell asleep and I woke up the next day and I was okay, but it was still there. And it scared me to think that something had control of me. And I knew that I couldn't let it have control of me. So that's when I started going to a therapist, and we started talking about, my life and my career. And, I have a problem with perfectionism. It's like, I always feel like I have to be great at something and I can't just enjoy it and just do your best. So I've tried in recent years to just be able to do my best. And, they always say, if your best isn't good enough, how could it be good at all? And it's true. It's like you have to let things go. I can't be great at everything. In fact, most things I'm not going to be great at. But do your best, be good. You don't have to be great. Be the best you can. But to put so much pressure on yourself is what I did. I had to always impress people. I had to make people think I was good, great. I had to make them like me. And that stemmed from childhood. So through a lot of therapy, I worked a lot of that out. Now there's still a lot to be worked out, and I have a long way to go. But that's when I had an anxiety attack and didn't know what it was and thought I was dying. That was the real first step in the therapy. I think I get anxiety when, it goes in waves. Sometimes I think I have it under control, but when I don't think I'm capable of doing something, when I don't think I'm going to be physically capable of doing something, when I think, oh, I won't have enough energy to fulfill this project, to accomplish this project, when I won't have little things trigger anxieties, like I'm not how I used to be. Maybe I'm just getting older. There's a lot of things that sort of trigger that. But I think learning to sleep better, learning to exercise every day, incorporating healthy habits and getting rid of bad habits, they lessen your chance of anxiety attacks. Less caffeine, less, there's certain things you can do to help prevent them or lessen the anxiety. So if you're taking caffeine all the time and you're having anxiety, well, stop caffeine. If you're having anxiety and you're not exercising, exercise. It will work wonders. Even if you take a 20-minute walk, you'll notice you'll feel better. Your diet, if you're eating sugars and you're constantly amped up on, sugar, and these are things that are just going to accelerate or amplify the anxiety. That's a great question. I think that, they always say if you're thinking about the future, that's anxiety. If you're thinking about the past, that's depression. There's experts who will say that. What I try to do is immediately get in touch with nature, go outside, walk, look at a tree, look at the sky, sit down, take a break, put your feet on the earth. It sounds trivial, but it's rather important, and it really helps. If you're stuck with anxiety and you're thinking about the future and you can't be present and you're always on your computer and you're always writing and you're always, well, how do you expect to be present? You're not taking any time for yourself. So meditation, if you have a jacuzzi, sit in the jacuzzi for 20 minutes, sit in the backyard and, just breathe. Just go, hey, I'm alive. I have a roof over my head. I have friends that love me. I'm okay. Gratitude's the number one thing that I've learned, that before I go to bed, I think of all the things I'm grateful for. And when you start to do that, it's science. They've proven that this actually works, that the more you are grateful, the more you start to think of all the things you're grateful for. That is such a healthy thing that it reinforces all the positive or positivity inside of you. And I find that to be very helpful, to just say, I'm grateful for my dog, Irv and Blanche, and I'm grateful for my grandmother, and I'm grateful for my friends, and I'm grateful I have a roof over my head, and I'm grateful that I have a car to drive to work, and I'm grateful that I have water, whatever it is. Just keep naming them, and you'll realize that you have so many things to look forward to and so many things to be grateful for, as opposed to a few of those things that are driving you crazy, that give you anxiety. I think I was living my life to the fullest when I was living in New York with four guys in a one-bedroom apartment. We didn't have any money. And I just remember being very carefree and fearless. And I didn't have much money. And I just felt like life's good. There were so many things I hadn't done. And then, believe it or not, once you become a celebrity, or you start to be able to do all these things that you never thought possible, like I'm on a TV show, I'm in a movie, I have some money, and you start to do these things and you're like, well, I've kind of done everything. It's a weird thing. It's like almost like I'm looking for things that I either, because I'm living in the past a lot. I think that's some depression there. But the nostalgia, like I miss, right now I miss concerts because we can't go to concerts. But I think that once I started doing things, I kind of, for a time period, I think I lost myself, where I was wrapped up in the whole illusion and of Hollywood. Like, you hear the story so many times, but realistically, the more I'm pretty grounded, even though I deal with anxiety and a lot of things. But simple things really make me happy now. Like I just like watching a movie with a friend. I like going on a little walk. I like, my friend Rob and I are going to go to Joshua Tree this week. The two of us are going to go on a 2.5 hour drive and just take some walks and pick up some food and be socially distanced. And but I think that the simple things in life make me happy. And so when I go back and I look at what made me happy, it was connections, talking to someone. That's why the podcast, I think, is successful. Forget about monetarily, but for me personally and mentally, because it forces me to put the headphones on and really listen to people and get their story. And like, it's an hour of just intimacy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's intense.
So, yeah, it can be intense, and it's just, I feel alive. I feel more alive when I'm talking to someone. Connection. No matter how dark of a place you're in, there's always a light. And I always say this because we don't know, we don't know about, we're not exactly sure about heaven and God and all these things. There's a lot of doubt for people, and I believe in God, but many people don't. But we still don't know what's going to happen after you die. We don't know if we get another life. So this is our last life. This is our only life. We've got to see it through. We've got to know that things will get better. And if you're as dark as you can be, you can only go up from there. And I feel that, no matter how dark you are in a place, how dark of a place you're in, that with good friends, with people who care and love you, with doing some work on yourself, with trying to be creative, exercising, diet, therapy. If you need medication, so be it. I'm not ashamed to say that I take, something that helps me. But I think that there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, and you just have to see it through, and things will get better. They always get better, no matter how bad they are for a time period. Life is not, if life was just this, or life was just this, Nobody would complain. No one would have problems. But life for a lot of people is like this. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to kind of get it to up here where it's just kind of in the middle. You don't want to get too low. You want to work out whatever it is you're dealing with and try to get to a level where you feel some normalcy.